Hello and welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports, and someone I believe down under in Australia was thankful that I slowed down the name of my business because it didn't come across before. So now I enunciate all three of the words, so Rev Endurance Sports. Now, anyway, thank you for watching from down under. What we have here is a Canyon Grail, aluminum Canyon Grail, and a gentleman purchased this off of Facebook and then found me via Google and says, wow, you got 120 something reviews, so this is the guy I need to go see. Now there are a few things on this bike that I wish to point out. So this is a pre-service, and then we'll do a post. The gentleman has not been riding bikes for about 15 years. He got into other sports and CrossFit and weight training and rowing. He was a rower in college. So he's been doing that for the last 15 years, but he wants to get back into riding. So, he's in the Facebook marketplace and he's just not seeing bikes below the $1,500 price point. But he comes across this bike and he's like, well, okay, I can do dual duty with this bike. I can do some some gravel, or I could set this up as a road bike. And in fact, that's what we're going to do. So let's do the headline of a Canyon Grail with a SRAM Rival 11-speed mechanical drivetrain. Now, the chainring is a 42 with a 1042 cassette. So that's a nice little setup because he's going to have his 1-to-1 with his 42-42, but he's also going to have a 42-10, which is a really big gear. And we are going to remove these Pathfinder tires, and you can see one of them's already flat. Remove those. We're going to put some road tires on there. I've got some 32s to put on there. And some other things that we're going to do, we're going to replace his bar tape because that's all a mess. And many of you know my disdain for the bottom-up taping method, and then it ends up with this ugly mess up here. So we're going to do our top-down, my top-down, go through it. The chain is completely worn, but I'm going to talk about that just a little bit later. And, some of you will make mention of, oh, that cable is frayed, it needs to be replaced. So a lot of times I leave these alone when the gearing, when the derailleur is shifting just perfectly. That means the cable's nice and worn in. All of the initial stretching, there goes a fire truck. All the initial stretch and settling in of the cable's all done. So there's no reason to replace the cable. This is after the anchor nut. So, but in this case we will, because the chain's completely worn, the cabling is all stock, and this bike is at least 5 or 6 years old. So the cables have never been replaced. So in this case, yeah, it warrants replacing the cable. We're going to clean the drivetrain as well. The brake pads are worn, so those need to get replaced. And for the time being, he's going to stick with the 1x, but he does have a front derailleur braze on if he decides to go 2x on this bike. And it's all just a matter of how he finds the 1x gearing. So all this stuff is new to him because 15 years ago, 1x drivetrains weren't the thing. Disc brakes were not, for road were not a thing. So just a lot of new technologies or methodologies for him. So what I want to do now is just show you a couple of tools that I think a home mechanic should have. These are some basic tools that I think every home mechanic should have, one or the other. These are chain checkers. So this one here, the CC2, and this one here, the CC4. This one is, in my opinion, more widespread in bike shops, and then this one is a few years old. And then lastly, this is a rotor checker. So let me zoom in a little bit on that. So Shimano minimum thickness, SRAM minimum thickness, and so on. Right? Now, what we will do is show you what this tool, how to use this tool shortly. But let's do the chain checker first. Put this guy in here like this. Drop it down like that. And then you look down in the window, right there. And whoop, there's just no resistance at all, right? And you just follow the diagram that's inside here, or on the item itself. Now, this has a graduated scale, but this guy it just falls right in. So there's nothing stopping it, so there's nothing to really look at here. So that chain's completely worn out. This is the disc rotor tool, and it's kind of like a no-go gauge that I used to use in the Marine Corps fixing jet aircraft. So you just put this on, and it's just very, what's the word I'm looking for? Dummy proof. So you're supposed to put it in these notches. So if you have a rotor that does not have a notch, if it's a fully rounded rotor, you're not supposed to use this. All right. So this is a SRAM rotor. We're just going to go on here and check, and if it doesn't go in, then it's not at the minimum thickness, right? It's above the minimum thickness, so we're good. So 1.55 for SRAM rotors. We'll check the back one. We know the pads are worn, so that's why we're taking the time to inspect it. So there's the notch again. Put that guy there. It does not go in, okay? And it has the most common ones, so SRAM, Shimano SRAM, Hayes, Magura, and the TRP. So the TRP, they also come in a 2.3, so that's a nice thick rotor. E-bikes, mountain bikes have those. And so once 0.3 has been worn, then that's a big 2mm gap there, right? Now with the magic of Hollywood, and we're back. This bike had a ton of what I like to call forever dirt. It's just dirt piled up on top of dirt, piled up on top of dirt. And it was just so hard to remove. I mean, it seemed like it was a grease dirt mixture. So it needed a scrub brush here and there. I'm sure I didn't get all of it. But anyway, we're going to shoot this and then take it back inside and continue the detailing. I think I'm also, as a finishing touch, going to use some Bike Lust, because I want to give a little bit of a protective coating, so when this gentleman rides, the bike will be easier to clean in the future. So Pedro's Bike Lust is sometimes what I use. All right, let's start from the front end. Got new bar tape on there, and as I've mentioned before, when it comes to gravel bikes, you're going to crash them. I mean, there's just no way you're not going to crash them. So you can see there is some shifter damage here, and I think the other side also had some shifter damage. So that means, at some point your grips might need to get replaced. These are a little tacky, so I'm going to recommend to the customer that we order a set and just have them on hand because they're a little tacky. They don't have that smooth finish to them anymore. I was able to wrap the bar tape the way I like to do it, top down. Some handlebars, like an Envy handlebar, will have a plug here that's proprietary to their design, and it just makes it difficult to do it. And as you can see, we've got some road tires on there now. We've got some Michelin Pro Road, Power Road, and we've got them in 32. A gentleman's in the 220 range. So I'm going to suggest somewhere around 65 to 70 PSI. We'll see what kind of roads he's going to end up on. I put 60 in just to do the test ride. And actually I did a lot more than that when I wanted the tires to seat. So you have to go over a certain amount. You want to hear a couple of pops when you are seating a tubeless tire. Replaced there was some aftermarket brake pads in there, I think. Couldn't tell the brand. So we got some SRAM original quiet brake pads. So that's just going to be a nice quiet ride, organic, and the braking action is nice and smooth. You'll also notice I cleaned the rims, and I was able to take you can see that I've got some lube on here, and that's because I wanted to lube the nipples to make sure that the next time if I need to true the wheel, it'll be a little easier, because some of the spokes, and they're bladed spokes, some of the nipples were hard to turn. In the process of doing the work, I found that the bottom bracket bearings were really bad. So got those replaced. And then the chain, and then we cleaned the drivetrain. And based on the test ride that I did, it seems like this cassette is in good shape. The chain was completely worn out. So I always worry that if a chain is completely worn out, how long has the chain been on there, and how much excessive wear has the cassette taken on because of that. But it seemed to shift fine. I didn't actually take it out on anything steep. I just had regular running shoes on. And then we also replaced the rear derailleur cable and housing. So from the front end, there is housing that goes into the frame right here, and then we come back. Apologize if that's not well enough. We come back, no housing through the frame, comes out here at a bottom bracket guide, exposed cable, and then you got your loop here. And everything just shifts really nicely with the new chain on there and the new cable. So whenever I do these kinds of jobs, I end up telling the customer, bring the bike back, you get a free adjustment because we did replace the cable, and it will, loosen up a little bit. Some people call it settling in, some people call it stretching, whatever the case may be. The shifting just won't be as precise in a few rides. It just depends how many rides sometimes, but it's inevitable. It will happen. So you have to prepare your customer and say, listen, yes, we spent all this money on new cable, new housing, internally routed. It took 3 hours to get it through, but don't worry, I got you covered. When your shifting starts to slip a little bit, just bring it back, and I'll do a free adjustment for you. Additionally, you also want to prepare the customer that maybe that cassette does have some wear that you just can't tell until someone of his size, over 200, 220, on a steep grade or on a power sprint or something, will then notice some slippage which you were not able to duplicate. So you want to prepare the customer for that. And I think this bike is pretty much done for the time being. The brakes were fine. The pistons retracted just fine. There is no rubbing. There was a minor adjustment once we put the new pads in. But that's about it. So there is your post converting this bike from a from a gravel setup, which basically is just the tires, from gravel to road now with 32 performance tires. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you up the road.